Okay, here we go. Welcome everyone to session number 294 of Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles. All right. Today, as we have in the past few sessions, been working with the supplements to A Course in Miracles. The supplements came a year or so after the publishing of the course, and it was Jesus just tweaking what was happening. All right, so he's been talking about, in the Song of Prayer, he's talking about prayer, forgiveness, and healing. Okay, so we're on the third part of forgiveness. And it is called Forgiveness for Salvation. All right. So, forgiveness for salvation has one form, and only one. It does not ask for proof of innocence, nor pay of any kind. It does not argue, nor evaluate the errors that it wants to overlook. It does not offer gifts in treachery, nor promise freedom while it asks for death. Would God deceive you? He but asks for trust and willingness to learn how to be free. He gives his teacher to whoever asks and seeks to understand the will of God. His readiness to give lies far beyond your understanding and your simple grasp. Yet he has willed you learn the way to him, and in his willing there is certainty. Okay. As we go along, and everybody, I'm imagining everyone has doubts. Doubts and pain, as Mick Jagger would sing about. It's nice to remember things like this, that in the willingness of God, there is certainty. All right, so like we always say, it is certain that you will be reunited right, with your Creator. So he says forgiveness for salvation has one form. So remember, salvation in the Course in Miracles, I tend to see it as the freedom from the ego thought system, the freedom from the belief in separation from the oneness, the belief in separation among the parts of the sonship. Right? We're saved from that by forgiveness. Right? And he says here, it only has one form. So last week he was speaking about 3 different forms here. Right? There was and he called it forgiveness to destroy, which meant to reinforce the idea of separation. Right? And that was, I think, to briefly go over it, it was you're a sinner, but I'm just such a magnanimous human being that I'll forgive you. The lordly forgiving, all right? The second mistaken type of forgiveness is the one who says, well, we're all sinners here, which once again reinforces the separation. You can't become aware of the innocence and the guilt at the same time. All right. And then there was forgiveness that I'll overlook what you did, but I'll never forget it. You owe me. That's how you keep someone in slavery to you, so to speak. And I was thinking about that. Just to take a tawdry example, suppose in a marriage, one partner in a marriage cheats on the other, right? And then they're really sorry about it. They don't know why they did it and all this, and I'll never do it again, and I really love you, I want you to be my partner. And the partner says, okay, yeah, I'll forgive you. But then they hold it over the person's head for, innumerable amount of time. Right? And that's, making sure that every time, that person stays in line, so to speak. Right? With however you do it, little hints of, remember what you did to me and all that, That's just one way of doing it. That was coming up for me for some odd reason. All right? But that's just a little recap. But he says here, it only has one form. Forgiveness for salvation has one form. It does not ask for proof of innocence, right? Nor pay of any kind. You don't have to atone for anything. Right? You don't have to do your penance. Right? It doesn't ask for the proof that you'll never do it again. I didn't do it. Then it doesn't evaluate the errors that it wants to overlook. Right? It does not offer gifts in treachery, nor promise freedom while it asks for death. Right? A very poetic way of saying, yes, sure, I'll forgive you, but I will hold it over your head. Right? And the death is that it reinforces the separation. He says, would God deceive you? All right, rhetorical question. He but asks for trust and willingness to learn how to be free. All right, now, months ago, when we were doing characteristics of God's teachers, and I believe the first characteristic was trust. And there was a big section on it, the development of trust. Right? And what we're doing is we're trusting that God will not deceive us. This is metaphor, okay? God doesn't speak. Right? We took the memory of our connection with God with us into this dream. In the Course, we call that the Holy Spirit. And poetically, it says that he gives his teacher to whoever asks and seeks to understand the will of God. So whoever wants to understand the innocence, all right, the peace of mind, which leads to the innocence, all right, whoever wants to understand that, you can, because you can contact that part of your mind that remembers the oneness, remembers who you truly are. Right? And he says, and you just have to trust in that process and be willing to learn how to be free. Right? Be willing to see the truth about the other. He gives his teacher to whoever asks and seeks to understand the will of God. His readiness to give lies far beyond your understanding and your simple grasp. Right? And, don't try not to be insulted by that. Right? But it's mind-boggling. And it does go beyond, right, my understanding. My ability to understand. Right? You can't figure this out. Right? You just have to be willing to allow the memory of who you are to rise up in your mind. Right? There's no figuring it out. But where is God? Who is God? What does he look like? What does she look like? Does God have an agenda? Does God have a voice? That's grasping to try to understand. Right? And that's understandable. Pardon the pun. But he says, don't worry about it. It's beyond your understanding. Right? And your simple grasp of everything. Right? Yet, it's his will. He has willed that you learn the way to him. Right? And we use our circumstances, our experiences here in form, in the dream, in the illusion. Right? We use our experiences to come back to the realization of who we are and what is our relationship with the Creator and what is our relationship with everything and everyone. So he has willed that you learn the way to him. And if he wills it, there is certainty. Right? And in his willing, there is certainty. That's why I always use the quote from the text that once the journey is begun, the end is certain. All right. So paragraph 2, he speaks. Remember, he's speaking to Helen Schuckman, but to all of us through Helen Schuckman. Helen would take these words down in her shorthand, and her and Bill Thetford would collaborate on the writing, right? And at this time, I believe Dr. Wapnick was involved, right? And he would add his comments and ideas, all right? But Helen was the one, and he's speaking to Helen, but to you also, all right? When he says, "You child of God, the gifts of God are yours, not by your plans, but by his holy will. His voice will teach you what forgiveness is and how to give it as he wills it be. Do not then seek to understand what is beyond you yet, but let it be a way to draw you up where the eyes of Christ become the sight you choose. Give up all else, for there is nothing else. When someone calls for help in any form, he is the one to answer for you. All that you need do is to step back and not interfere. Forgiveness for salvation is his task, and it is he who will respond for you." Okay. So his voice will teach you. And that's another poetic way, metaphor of saying the Holy Spirit will teach you if that's what you're willing to hear. Right? And sometimes, in my experience, it comes, even though you think you're doing the right thing, you realize, oh no, I got to just stop. I got to put everything down. Everything I'm thinking, everything I'm trying to control, you don't even realize you're trying to control things sometimes. Right? So the gifts of God are yours, not by your plans, but by his holy will. Right? In the creation, all the gifts were given. That's his will. And it's still the truth. We think we separated from that. So he's trying to help us get back. All right? So you child of God, the gifts of God are yours, not by your plans, but by his holy will. His voice will teach you what forgiveness is. All right? So let go all of your preconceived notions of what forgiveness is. And just be desirous of experiencing the truth and innocence. Allow it to be. His voice will teach you what forgiveness is and how to give it as he wills it be. And the way we give it is by letting it work through us. We don't do anything. We just be willing to see the truth. Be willing to put down all our projections of guilt. And allow it to rise up. All right. And that's how we give it as he wills it to be. Do not then seek to understand what is beyond you yet, but let it be a way to draw you up where the eyes of Christ become the sight you choose. So this willingness to drop all the projection and just allow the truth to arise in your awareness, he says, this will lift you up. It will draw you up, right, to a place where you only see innocence. Right? That's the metaphor of the eyes of Christ become the sight you choose. So then he says, give up everything else. Give up all else. For there is nothing else. All right. It's a powerful little sentence there. There is only the original innocence. All right. Give up all else. There is nothing else. When someone calls for help in any form, he is the one to answer for you. All that you need do is step back and not to interfere. Forgiveness for salvation is his task, and it is he who will respond for you. Now, this is once again where that element of that idea of trust comes in. When someone calls for help in any form, remember, if they're not extending love, they're calling for it. They're calling for help. Help me. Help me regain my innocence. In whatever form it's happening. Somebody robbing a store, somebody mugging somebody, somebody yelling at their spouse, somebody yelling at their parent. Right? Somebody yelling at siblings, the siblings arguing. Right? They're calling for help. They don't realize that they are calling for help. Right? And he says the Holy Spirit is the one who will answer for you. You just practice that, coming into the right mind, as we say. And sitting in that space, that loving space. Right. And allowing the Holy Spirit to answer for you. Because the answer is always an extension of love. Right. Forgiveness for salvation is his task. Oh wait, then he says, all that you need to do is step back and not to interfere. Right? Just be desirous of love coming through you, your mind. Love coming into your mind, and the minds are connected, so it comes into their minds also. And all you need to do is step back and not to interfere. Forgiveness for salvation is his task, and it is he who will respond for you. Right? Once again, just trust that that will happen. All right? And this way, when we're trusting that that will happen, as he says in paragraph 3, do not establish what the form should be that Christ's forgiveness takes. Right? He knows the way to make of every call a help to you. And as you arise in haste to go at last unto your Father's house. Right? So he knows the way, right, to make of every call a help to you. As you arise in haste to go at last to your Father's house. Now can he make your footsteps sure, your words sincere, not with your own sincerity, but with his own. Let him take charge of how you would forgive. And each occasion then will be to you another step to heaven and to peace. Because as we allow the forgiveness to take place, right, we realize our own innocence more and more. Right? And each occasion will be another step to heaven and to peace. Right? So, I mean, that's a practice too. You know, some situations are, you feel like you have to do something until it dawns on you that it's just so complicated and so overwhelming and you don't know where to begin. So sometimes it gets to that point, and as my dear teacher Emily would say, that's a good thing. Because you just realize that you can't do anything about it. Right? That's when we trust that when we go to the right mind, the Holy Spirit, right, will take over and will allow love to come through us and settle on the situation. And if you need a word, you'll get it, as this text says. Or if you need to do something, you'll know what to do. But you don't plan it. You don't have to. As a matter of fact, he tells you to get out the way. Get out of the way. All right? So do not establish the form, all right, what the form should be that the forgiveness takes. All right? Just stop trying to control it. The Holy Spirit knows how to use everything to help us get home. Let him take charge of how you would forgive. All right? Then in paragraph 4, he asks us a question. Are you not weary of imprisonment? God did not choose this sorry path for you. What you have chosen still can be undone. For prayer is merciful, and God is just. His is a justice he can understand, but you cannot as yet. Still, will he give the means to you to learn of him and know at last that condemnation is not real and makes illusions in its evil name. And yet it matters not the form that dreams may seem to take. Illusions are untrue. God's will is truth, and you are one with him in will and purpose. Here, all dreams are done. Very powerful and poetic. It's almost reminiscent of, that soliloquy, to sleep, perchance to dream. Right? And I'll ruin it if I go on. But who knows what dreams may come, So, of course, they're talking about taking our own lives, but who knows what dreams will come in the next, But he says, here, all dreams are done. Right? He says, so aren't you weary of imprisonment? Right? And the imprisonment is the prison of the ego thought system. The belief that I am guilty of destroying the oneness. That's what's deep down inside our mind. Right? I am guilty of something. And we try to get rid of the guilt. We project it all over the place. I mean, that's what this world is all about. That's what it's for. To give me myriad opportunities to project guilt. You can see it in your own life. You could turn on the TV and watch the news and learn all that. It's all projection of guilt. Right? So he goes, aren't you tired of that? Aren't you tired of this attack, defend, attack, defend? Aren't you tired of believing you did something wrong and trying to figure out how you're going to atone for it, or who's going to atone for it, and who's to blame, all that nonsense? He says, God didn't choose this sorry path for you. Right? In the one part in the book, Jesus says, everyone, he goes, all you who wander this earth, uncertain, lonely, and in constant fear. Right? That's the imprisonment he's talking about. He goes, and God didn't choose this for you. God didn't choose this sorry path for you. There's a part of the mind that chose to make believe this is who I am. This is who I am. Right? Right? What you have chosen still can be undone. Right? No matter what path you've chosen. Right? What sorry path you've chosen, it can be undone. And it's, once again, it's that willingness and the trust in the Holy Spirit. Help me to see correctly. I'm willing to see the truth. As Dr. Wapnick would say, simple, but not easy. All right? What you have chosen still can be undone. For prayer is merciful and God is just. His is a justice he can understand, but you cannot as yet. God's justice is you're innocent. You are glorious. You are pure as the driven snow, as someone would say. That's who you are. That's God's justice. Right? That's the last judgment. There's a section of the text called the last judgment. And that's what it is. You're not guilty. You never left. You only thought you did. It was a silly dream. All right? And I believe there's another section called the judgment of the Holy Spirit. Same thing. You're not guilty. Right? Step down. Next case. Not guilty. All right? And he tells us once again, you probably can't understand that. you probably can't understand it. What do you mean? He's innocent? And we talking about something that's happening in time, in the illusion. Right? But yes, no matter who he or she is, the truth of them is, yes, they are you. They are innocent. Right? They've just chosen a silly path. A sorry path, as he says, So his is a justice that he can understand. All right, so God can understand it, but you cannot see as yet. We don't get it. What do you mean? Everybody's innocent. Look at these people. How could you say that? All right. Still, will he give the means to you to learn of him and know at last that condemnation is not real. Right? So the means is given us to finally realize that condemnation is not real. And it only makes illusions. It makes illusions in its evil name. Right? And yet it matters not the form that dreams may take. It doesn't matter what the form looks like. Because it's all illusion, and all illusions are untrue. Illusions are untrue. And the illusions come from the idea of separation and condemnation. And yet it matters not the form the dreams may seem to take. Illusions are untrue. God's will is truth. And you are one with him in will and purpose. All right? God's will is truth. Innocence, peace, innocence. All right? God's will is true, is truth. And you are one with him. There is no separation. You are one with him in will and purpose. All right? You're one. Your will is innocence, and your purpose is extension of innocence, love, everything. All right. And he goes, and here, in that realization, all dreams are done. All dreams are done. The entire ego system and all the forms that it imagined, they're done. Paragraph 5. What should I do for him, your holy son? Should be the only thing you ever ask when help is needed and forgiveness sought. The form the seeking takes, you need not judge. And let it not be you who sets the form in which forgiveness comes to save God's Son. The light of Christ in him is his release. And it is this that answers his call. Forgive him as the Christ decides you should. And be his eyes through which you look on him, and speak for him as well. He knows the need, the question, and the answer. He will say exactly what to do, in words that you can understand, and you can also use. Do not confuse his function with your own. He is the answer. You, the one who hears. Right. So I think this is a very powerful section also. So when we see someone in need, someone calling out for love in whatever form that takes, right? Whatever form it takes, right? He says, what should I do for him or her? What should I do for them? All right? Your holy sons and daughters. He says, that's the only thing you should ever ask when help is needed and forgiveness is sought. Right? So help is needed and forgiveness is sought. Right? When I see siblings exploding on one another, just one little comment sets one off and then sets the other off. Right? And you stand there and who knows what to do? I don't know. It's to me, it's so complicated. There's decades of story there, decades of interaction and trauma and all kinds of things that happen. Right? And they're actually calling out for help. They say, I don't know what to do, but it sounds like they're attacking one another. Right? So our prayer, if we're witness to that, or we're asked to even supply help or something, right? The only thing you should ever ask is, what can I do? What should I do for them? What should I do for them? And just let it be. Sink into the love. Trust that the Holy Spirit, Jesus, is going to guide you. It's the only thing you should ever ask when help is needed and forgiveness is sought. Because people are projecting guilt onto one another because they deep down inside feel the guilt and they feel the need to get rid of it. So they start blaming the nearest person. That's a call for help. That's a call for help. The form the seeking takes, you need not judge. So don't judge the form of the seeking. Could be somebody robbing a bank, could be somebody, starting a war. It could be whatever horrible things happen in the world. These are cries for help. There's all kinds of talk about this one's a war criminal, that one's a war criminal. Deep down inside, this is a call for help. And he says, don't judge it. Don't judge the form of the call for help. All right? Don't let them off the hook. They stray into the ego forest there. He says, the form the seeking takes, you need not judge. All right. Once again, I think it's the first thing the book says. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. There's no order of difficulty. One cry for help is the same as the other, no matter what it looks like. So the form the seeking takes, you need not judge. And let it not be you who sets the form in which forgiveness comes to save the Son of God. You don't have to figure out what to do. You don't have to figure out what forgiveness looks like in this case. You just ask the question, what can I do for them? What can I do for them? These offspring of God who have who are crying out in their uncertainty and their loneliness and their fear. All right. So, and let it not be you who sets the form in which forgiveness comes to save the Son, God's Son. The light of Christ in him is his release. And it is this that answers to his call. All right. So it's, like we're trying to figure it out here. Like he says, don't do that. But I sit in the loving space asking, what should I do for them? All right. The light of Christ ignites in the one mind. It comes into the one mind. All right. And it rises up even if the person is still acting, in very despicable ways. All right. The light of Christ in him is his release. And it is this that answers his call. All right. Forgive him as the Christ decides you should, and be his eyes through which you look on him. All right. And speak for him as well. All right. So we just wait, we sit, all right, and let the Christ in us answer. That's what he means by forgive him as the Christ decides you should. All right? That your original innocence. All right? And be his eyes, be the eyes of Christ, through which you would look on whoever it is. All right? And speak for him as well. If you need to speak, you'll be based in that foundation of love in your mind. All right. The Holy Spirit, the memory of the Christ, all right, Jesus, whatever symbol you want to use, he will say exactly what to do in words you can understand. And you can also use if you have to. Like I say, you'll know what to say. Do not confuse his function with your own. Right? So you don't have to make up anything. You don't have to take the initiative. You just sit and wait. I call it waiting for that loud idea. Right? Because he is the answer. Right? The Holy Spirit, the Christ in you. The memory of who you are, right? Symbolized by Jesus, right? He is the answer, and you are the one that hears the answer. So just wait for the answer. And what is it he speaks to you about? Right? He speaks about salvation and the gift of peace, about the end of sin and guilt and death, right? About the role forgiveness has in him. Do you but listen, for he will be heard by anyone who calls upon his name and places his forgiveness in his hands. Forgiveness has been given him to teach, to save it from destruction, and to make the means for separation, sin, and death become again the holy gift of God. Prayer is his own right hand, prayer is his own right hand made free to save, as true forgiveness is allowed to come from his eternal vigilance and love. Listen and learn, and do not judge. It is to God you turn to hear what you should do. His answer will be clear, right? Clear as a morning. Nor is his forgiveness what you think it is. So saying he's the answer, right? We go to the right mind. We ask, what should I do for them, your children? And we just wait for the answer. He says, he's the answer. You're the one that hears the answer. And what does he speak to you about? Right? He speaks about salvation and the gift of peace. Right? Salvation, that freedom from the ego thought system of separation and guilt. And the gift of peace. He speaks about the end of sin and guilt and death. He speaks about the role forgiveness has in him. Right? He is the bridge. He will show you. He will show you the truth about everyone. He says, do you but listen. He says, just listen. I think that's like a very Shakespearean way to put it. Do you but listen. Just listen. Right. For he will be heard by anyone who calls upon his name. Trust. And he will be heard by anyone who calls upon his name and places his forgiveness in his hands. Forgiveness has been given him to teach, to save it from destruction, and to make the means for separation, sin, and death become again the holy gift of God. Right? So forgiveness is in the hands of the Holy Spirit, because he will save it from destruction. All those other ways that we forgive to destroy. Right? And he will take the means for separation, right? Separation, sin, and guilt, and they'll just look at them differently. Right? And they become again the holy gift of God. Prayer is his own right hand. Right? So prayer is that sitting in the love. Right? Prayer is his own right hand, made free to save, as true forgiveness is allowed to come from his eternal vigilance and love. Right? So as he says here, the only question he says, what should I do for your children? And we sit in the oneness, sit in the love, and trust the answer will come up. Right. And that's what he talks about. He said, and very poetically, he said, it's made to save as true forgiveness is allowed to come from his eternal vigilance and love. So we're sitting in that eternal vigilance and love and allowing it to fall upon us, all right? To descend upon us, if you want to look at it that way. Listen and learn and do not judge. All right? It is to God you turn to hear what you should do. We turn to God. What should I do for your children? His answer will be clear as morning, nor is his forgiveness what you think it is. All right? So don't have any preconceived notions. Just turn to God and ask, what should I do for your children? Still does he know, and that should be enough. Forgiveness has a teacher who will fail in nothing. Rest a while in this. Do not attempt to judge forgiveness, nor to set it in an earthly frame. Let it arise to Christ, who welcomes it as a gift to him. He will not leave you comfortless, nor fail to send his angels down to answer you in his own name. He stands beside the door to which forgiveness is the only key. Give it to him to use instead of you, and you will see the door swing silently open upon the shining face of Christ. Behold your brother there, beyond the door, the Son of God, as he created him. All right? So don't attempt to judge forgiveness or set it in an earthly frame. All right? Don't worry about the form. All right? Let it arise to Christ, who welcomes it as a gift to him. So he tells us God knows, and he sent us a teacher who will fail in nothing. All right? And use whatever symbol you like, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, symbols of unconditional love and non-judgment. All right? Let it arise to Christ. All right? He will not leave you comfortless. Trust in that. He will not leave you comfortless. Right? And nor will he fail to send his angels down to answer you in his own name. All right. Remember, this is metaphor, but take comfort in that. The comfort will come in a language you can understand, in a way that you can understand it. All right. He stands beside the door to which forgiveness is the only key. So forgiveness is the key to heaven, so to speak. Give it to him to use instead of you. And you will see the door swing silently open upon the shining face of Christ. The door will swing open, and all innocence will shine forward. Right? Behold your brothers there beyond the door. Right? Behold your brother there behind the door, the Son of God, as he created him. That's who the other is. Just as you are, the Son of God, as God created you. And forgiveness is the way to that awareness. Alrighty then. Thank you for the opportunity, and I will see you in the next session.